Growing up, my Grandpa George was the only person in my family who truly believed in me. When I was 16 and told everyone I wanted to study art, my parents shut me down immediately. They said it was a waste of time, that I would never make real money. But Grandpa pulled me aside that night and slipped me $200. He whispered that I should sign up for those summer art classes I had been looking at. He told me to follow what made my heart sing, and the money would follow. Last year, when I graduated college with my design degree, he said he had a special gift for me. I figured it was just words of encouragement, maybe a check for a few $100. But at this year's Christmas dinner, everything changed. One question from him made the entire room go silent, and I realized my parents had been hiding something massive from me. Before we go any further, I want to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever had family hide something important from you, hit that like button and subscribe, because you are going to want to hear how this played out. Trust me, what my parents did was beyond anything I could have imagined. Now, let me take you back a bit so you understand why this betrayal cut so deep. My name is Kenneth. I am 26 years old, and I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm here in Denver, Colorado. The pay is decent, around $50,000 a year, but it is not exactly making me rich. I rent a tiny studio apartment on the east side of town. The rent eats up nearly half my paycheck every month. I have been dreaming about owning my own place since I graduated, but with Denver housing prices climbing past $300,000 for even a modest home, that dream felt impossible. I am still single, pouring most of my energy into building my career and paying off student loans. Life has been stable but tight. Every dollar counts. My relationship with Grandpa George has always been special. He is 78 now, a retired civil engineer who spent decades working on bridges and buildings across Colorado. He retired about 10 years ago and made some smart real estate investments over the years. While he is not a millionaire, he is comfortable. More importantly, he always saw potential in me that my parents refused to see. When I was growing up, my folks constantly pushed me toward practical careers. My dad, Martin, works as an accountant. My mom, Patricia, is a nurse. Both are good people in their own way, but they value security and predictability above all else. They wanted me to become a doctor or a lawyer, something respectable in their eyes. When I chose graphic design in college, they were furious. They said I was throwing my life away. They refused to come to my graduation ceremony. That hurt more than I can explain. During those 4 years of school, they barely helped me financially. I survived on scholarship student loans and working nights at a campus restaurant. What they do not know is that Grandpa George paid for most of my tuition. He made me promise not to tell them because he did not want to start family drama. He would send me checks every semester with little notes that said things like, "Keep creating, Kenneth. The world needs your vision." After graduation, my relationship with my parents remained cold. We only saw each other on major holidays. They rarely called to check in. When they did, conversations were stiff and awkward. I could feel their disappointment radiating through the phone. Last Thanksgiving, my dad actually introduced me to extended family as someone who was still figuring things out. I am 26 with a steady job and benefits, but to him, I am a failure because I did not choose his path. That stung badly. Over the past year, I noticed something strange. My parents suddenly seemed to have more money than usual. They bought a brand new SUV, a silver Toyota Highlander. They went on a 3-week trip to Europe over the summer. They renovated their kitchen with granite countertops and new appliances. When I asked about it during a brief phone call, my mom said they had been saving carefully from their jobs. But I know roughly what accountants and nurses make in Denver. The math did not add up. I wondered if maybe Grandpa had given them money, but I felt too awkward to ask him directly. Something felt off, but I pushed the thought away. I had my own struggles to worry about. Christmas this year was held at my parents' house in the suburb of Lakewood. I drove over after finishing up some freelance work, arriving about 20 minutes late because of holiday traffic on Interstate 70. When I walked in, Grandpa was already there sitting in the living room armchair with a cup of coffee. He looked happy and energized more so than usual. My Aunt Linda, my dad's younger sister, was there with her husband Mike and their 2 kids. The house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon. Christmas music played softly in the background, but I noticed my parents seemed tense. My mom kept fussing with the tablecloth. My dad barely made eye contact with me when I said hello. We sat down for dinner around 6:30 in the evening. The table was full of food: turkey mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce rolls. It should have been a warm, happy meal. But there was this weird energy in the air. Grandpa kept asking me questions about my life, my job, my apartment. He seemed genuinely interested, which was nice. Then out of nowhere he asked me something that made my fork freeze halfway to my mouth. He said, "So, Kenneth, have you moved into the new place yet?" I blinked at him, confused. "New place, I am still in the same studio apartment, Grandpa." His eyebrows pulled together. He glanced over at my parents. "What do you mean I am talking about the house?" "What house?" I asked, genuinely lost. Grandpa looked at my dad, then my mom. His expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. My mom quickly jumped in, her voice a little too bright. "Dad, I think you might be mixing things up. Kenneth is doing just fine where he is." But Grandpa was not buying it. He set down his coffee cup with a sharp clink. "I am not mixing anything up, Patricia. I know exactly what I'm talking about." The table went quiet. Even my young cousins stopped chattering. I felt my heart start to race. Something was very wrong. Grandpa did not say anything more right then, but I could see his jaw tighten. He shot my parents a look that could have cut glass. We finished dinner in uncomfortable near silence. My Aunt Linda tried to make small talk about her kids' school activities, but it felt forced. My dad stared at his plate. My mom kept drinking her wine faster than usual. After dinner, we moved to the living room to exchange gifts and have coffee. I was still trying to process what Grandpa had said about a house. Was he confused? Did he mean something symbolic? Then, just as my mom was pouring coffee into holiday mugs, Grandpa stood up. He looked directly at me and said in a loud, clear voice, "Kenneth, do you like the house I bought for you?" Every head turned toward us. I felt my stomach drop. "Grandpa, I do not understand. You bought me a house." He nodded firmly. "Yes, I purchased it for you in February of last year, right after your graduation. It is a 2-story home in the Highlands neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, nice backyard. I signed over the deed to put it in your name. It was my graduation gift to you." I could not breathe. A house in the Highlands. That is one of the nicest areas in Denver. I had no idea. None. How could I not know about something like this? I looked at my parents. My mom's face had gone pale. My dad looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch. Grandpa's voice grew harder, louder. "Martin, Patricia, why does Kenneth not know anything about the house I gave him?" My dad stammered, "Dad, there might be some confusion here." "There is no confusion," Grandpa snapped. "I want to see the deed, right now. I want to see the paperwork I gave you to pass along to Kenneth." The room felt like it was spinning. My Aunt Linda and Uncle Mike sat frozen eyes wide. My cousins had been sent upstairs by this point. My mom started crying softly. My dad rubbed his face with both hands. Finally, my mom whispered, "We have the papers." "Then get them," Grandpa demanded. His voice was shaking, not with age, but with anger. I'd never heard him sound like this. My mom stood up slowly and walked to the home office down the hall. She came back a minute later holding a large manila envelope. Her hands were trembling. She handed it to me, not to Grandpa. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was the deed to a property on 32nd Avenue in Highlands. The owner listed was Kenneth James Porter. Me. My name. There were also 2 keys on a ring and a rental lease agreement. A rental lease, I pulled out the lease and started reading. My parents had rented out the house. They had been collecting $2,200 a month from a family who moved in last March. I did the math in my head. That was almost 2 years of rent, nearly $44,000. And I had not seen a single cent. I looked up at my parents, my voice barely a whisper. "You rented out my house." My dad finally spoke, his voice defensive. "Kenneth, we did not think you were ready to own a home. You just graduated. You're still figuring out your career. We thought it was better to manage the property for you until you were more mature." Manage? Grandpa's voice cut through like a knife. "Or profit from, did you tell Kenneth you were renting it? Did you give him the money?" Silence. My mom sobbed harder. "We needed the money. We had credit card debt. We were drowning." "So you stole from your son," Grandpa said flatly. "You took his future and used it to pay for your European vacation and your new car." My Aunt Linda gasped. "You did not." But they had. The evidence was right there in my hands. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. For almost 2 years I could have been living in my own house. I could have saved nearly $12,000 in rent. Instead, I was struggling in a cramped studio while my parents paid off their debts and lived it up with money that should have been mine. And they had the nerve to act like they were doing me a favor, like they were protecting me because I was not mature enough. The betrayal was so deep I could not even find words. Grandpa stood up, his face red. "I did not raise you to be thieves. I did not work my whole life so you could steal from my grandson." I do not know where the calmness came from, but suddenly I was not crying or yelling. I felt cold and clear-headed. I looked at my parents and said, "I want every document related to that house right now. The deed, the lease, the keys, everything." My mom tried to reach for my hand. "Kenneth, please let us explain." "No," I interrupted. "I do not want explanations. I want the papers. Now." Grandpa nodded his approval. "Give him everything, Martin, immediately." My dad got up and went to the office. He came back with another folder containing bank statements showing the rent deposits, copies of correspondence with the tenants, and utility bills. I spread everything out on the coffee table and read through it all carefully. The house was definitely mine. My parents had signed a 1-year lease with the current tenants, a young couple with 2 small children. The lease still had 4 months remaining. Then I noticed something else. I looked at the bank statements more closely. The rental income had never been reported. I looked up at my dad, who used to lecture me about the importance of following rules. "Did you report this rental income to the IRS?" His face went even paler. He did not answer. "You did not? Did you?" I said slowly. "You have been collecting rental income and not paying taxes on it. That is tax fraud." Grandpa caught on immediately. "Are you telling me you have been committing tax evasion? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you could be in? You could go to prison? Martin?" My Aunt Linda looked horrified. "Oh my God!" I felt a strange sense of power in that moment. They had wronged me deeply, but now I held all the cards. I took a breath and said, "Here is what is going to happen. You are going to pay me back every single dollar you collected in rent. All $44,000. You have 30 days. "Kenneth, we do not have that kind of cash right now," my dad protested. "That is not my problem," I said coldly. "You had almost 2 years to think about this. You made your choices. Now you deal with the consequences. If you do not pay me back in full within 30 days, I will report the tax fraud to the IRS, and I will sue you for theft and fraud. I will make sure everyone knows what you did." My mom cried harder. "Please, we are your parents. Parents do not steal from their children." I said, my voice steady. "Parents do not lie for 2 years while their kid struggles. You're going to pay me back and then we are done." Grandpa stepped closer to me, putting a hand on my shoulder. "Kenneth is right. You brought this on yourselves. You will pay him back and you will be grateful he is not pressing charges right now." My Aunt Linda, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. "Martin, you need to do what Kenneth is asking. You were wrong. Completely wrong. The weight of the room pressed down on my parents. My dad looked defeated. My mom could not stop crying. But I did not feel sorry for them. Not even a little bit. They had made me feel worthless for years. They had stolen from me. And now they were facing the consequences. Before I left that night, I made them sign a handwritten agreement stating they would repay the full amount within 30 days. Grandpa and Aunt Linda signed as witnesses. I took all the paperwork, the keys, and the lease documents with me. As I walked out the door, I did not say goodbye. I just left. The next morning, December 26th, I called a lawyer. I explained the situation and she agreed to help me. That afternoon, I drove to 32nd Avenue to see my house for the first time. It was beautiful. A charming 2-story brick home with a small front porch, a neat lawn, and a wooden fence around the back. It was in a quiet, tree-lined street. I could not believe this had been mine for almost 2 years, and I had no idea. I knocked on the door. A woman in her early 30s answered, holding a toddler on her hip. I introduced myself as the actual owner of the house. She looked shocked. She said they had been paying rent to my parents and had no idea there was any issue. I assured her that their lease was still valid and they could stay until it expired in April. I apologized for any confusion and gave her my phone number in case they had questions. She seemed relieved. Over the next 2 weeks, my parents scrambled. I did not answer their calls, but my lawyer kept me updated. They sold the new SUV. They took out a loan against my dad's retirement account. It must have been humiliating for them, but I did not care. On day 28, they transferred $44,000 into my bank account. I verified it with my bank, checked every detail, and confirmed receipt with my lawyer. I also worked with a tax accountant to file amended returns and report the rental income properly for the previous year. I wanted everything clean and legal going forward. I did not want their mess following me. My relationship with my parents was completely shattered. They called and texted, constantly apologizing and begging for forgiveness. I ignored them. Grandpa told me I had done the right thing. He said, "Never let anyone, not even family, take advantage of you. You stood up for yourself, and I am proud of you." 3 months later, in early April, the lease on my house ended. The tenants moved out, and I decided not to rent it again. Instead, I moved in myself. I spent a few weeks painting the walls, furnishing the rooms with second-hand finds and some new pieces. I turned the 3rd bedroom into my design studio, setting up my computer drawing tablet and a big desk by the window. Natural light poured in every morning, and I finally had space to work on personal projects. Having my own house changed everything. I was no longer throwing away money on rent. I could invest in better equipment for my work. My freelance projects picked up because I had a proper space to meet clients and show my portfolio. By summer, my income had climbed to around $70,000 a year. I felt stable for the first time in my adult life. As for my parents, we did not speak for 3 months after Christmas. Then, in mid-March, my mom sent me a long letter. It was handwritten 6 pages, front and back. She apologized deeply for what they had done. She admitted they had been greedy and wrong. She said they had been going to therapy to understand why they made such terrible choices. She explained that they had always felt insecure about money, and when they saw an opportunity, they took it without thinking about how it would hurt me. She did not make excuses, but she tried to help me understand their mindset. I read that letter 3 times. I was still angry. I am still angry, honestly. But I also realize that my parents are flawed people who made a terrible mistake. That does not excuse what they did, but it gave me some clarity. In late March, I agreed to meet them at a neutral coffee shop downtown. It was awkward and tense. They apologized again in person. I told them I accepted their apology, but I also made it very clear that our relationship would never be the same. Trust, once broken like that, does not just come back. They nodded. They understood. We see each other occasionally now, maybe once every couple of months. It is civil but distant. I do not hate them, but I do not feel close to them either. Maybe one day that will change. Maybe it will not. I am okay with either outcome. Grandpa George, on the other hand, became even more important to me. I started having dinner with him every Sunday. We would cook together, talk about life, and he would share stories from his career and his own mistakes. He told me he was proud of how I handled everything. He said most people would have crumbled or lashed out violently, but I stayed calm and used the system to protect myself. He said that took real strength. One Sunday in late June, we were sitting on my back porch drinking iced tea. He looked around at the house at the little garden I had started at the hammock I hung between two trees. He smiled and said, "You have made this place your own, Kenneth. I knew you would." I thanked him, not just for the house, but for believing in me when no one else did. He waved it off like it was nothing, but it was everything to me. I have learned a lot from this whole experience. I learned that family does not always mean safety. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you most, not out of hate, but out of fear or greed or insecurity. I learned that you have to stand up for yourself even when it is hard, even when it is family. Setting boundaries is not cruel. It is necessary. I also learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or letting people off the hook. You can forgive someone and still keep your distance. You can acknowledge their apology without letting them back into your life the way they were before. That is okay. That is healthy. Most importantly, I learned that real freedom comes from owning your own life. It is not just about owning a house or having money, though those things help. It is about refusing to let anyone control your narrative or steal your future. When Grandpa gave me that house, he was not just giving me property. He was giving me a foundation to build my life on my own terms. And when I fought to take it back from my parents, I was not just fighting for money. I was fighting for my dignity, my independence, and my right to control my own destiny. Now, every evening when I come home from work, I pull into my driveway and sit in the car for a moment. I look at my house, my space, my sanctuary. And I feel grateful. Not just for the bricks and the roof, but for everything that house represents. It represents belief. It represents standing up for myself. It represents the painful but necessary lesson that you teach people how to treat you. I still have a long way to go in life. I am only 26. I have decades ahead of me. But I know now that I can handle whatever comes. I know I can set boundaries. I know I can fight for what is mine. And I know that the people who truly love you will support your growth, not steal from it. So here I am sitting in my home office as the summer sun sets outside my window. I have my design projects spread out in front of me. I have plans for the future. And I have peace, the kind of peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing even when it was the hardest thing. That is my story. That is how I learned that sometimes the greatest gifts come with the hardest lessons attached. And sometimes the people you expect to protect you are the ones you need protection from. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a family member betray your trust? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means everything and helps us keep telling real stories about real life. Thank you for listening, and I hope you find the courage to stand up for yourself no matter who is on the other side. Take care of yourselves out there and remember that you deserve respect, honesty, and people who celebrate your success instead of stealing from it. Until next time.